ॐ विश्वं दर्पणदृश्यमाननगरी तुल्यन्निजान्तर्गतं पश्यन्नात्मनि मायया बहिरिवोद्भूतं यथा निद्रया यस्साक्षात् कुरुते प्रबोधसमये स्वात्मानमेवाद्वयं तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये बीजस्यान्तरिवाङ्कुरो जगदिदं प्राङ्निर्विकल्पं पुनः मायाकल्पितदेशकालकलना वैचित्रचित्रीकृतं मायावीव विजृम्भयत्यपि महायोगी वयस्वेच्छया तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्तिः 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 सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैः स्तुष्टुवागुंसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः. Seventh mantra, page number 46. नान्तः प्रज्ञं न बहिष्प्रज्ञं नोभयतः प्रज्ञं न प्रज्ञानघनं न प्रज्ञं नाप्रज्ञम् अदृष्टमव्यवहार्यमग्राह्यमलक्षणम् अचिन्त्यमप्यपदेश्यमेकात्मप्रत्ययसारं प्रपञ्चोपशमं शान्तं शिवमद्वैतं चतुर्थं मन्यन्ते स आत्मा स विज्ञेयः. So the seventh mantra talks about the Turiya, the Atma. Atma as it is, just pure consciousness. And the description, that Lakshana actually, Lakshana is something, a definition is something, this is how Nayayika defines definition. Lakshanasya Lakshanam Kim. So, well, definitely we can say in English that definition is one which you describe a given thing so that you could definitely identify that thing in comparison to other things. Like one which has a dew lap is called cow. That's a definition. Sasnadi matvam goho lakshanam. That's how they define. And human being also is defined. Shirf Panyadiman Manushyaha. One who is having a head, Shiraha, Panyadiman. One who is having a head and hands is a human being. But a hand everyone has. So this is not called Lakshanam. You said you can segregate, you can clearly identify a given thing by description. That's called definition. But here, head is everyone. That's true. But the hand no one has. Yeah. Hand, everyone has a legs. We use hands as a legs, that's a different thing. Sometimes for grandchildren, you become like a horse kind of a thing. So that's a different thing. But you have hands, no one has. So same way, Turiya's Lakshanam, you are defining Turiya. That's fine. But here, in definition, you should not negate. You should clean, vidhimukhena. You should say like one which has a animal which has a dew lap is a cow. There is no negation in that. One which has a head and hands is a human being. So then Turiya you should describe like this, affirmatively, like this. And instead you are saying Nanta Pragnam, Bahish Pragnam, etc. etc. Because we have already committed a mistake. Because I am a self-evident being, and definitely I am self-conscious, being self-evident, self-conscious. But at the same time, Avarana is there from beginningless time. This beginningless time also I don't want to, yeah, Nadi. Beginningless, since beginningless time it is there. Brahman is there since beginningless time. Ajnanam Ajnanam is there, beginningless time. Already duality. Okay? Therefore, it is not since beginningless time. Anyway, I have discussed, I think, this. Anyway, so so this mithya jnanam, of course, avarana is there, and therefore even though one is self-evident, self-conscious, and therefore self-judgment also will be there, but that self-judgment is a wrong judgment. That's a mistake, and that because of the self-ignorance. And therefore, that is to be corrected. Mistake is to be corrected. So, Shastra does this. Then he need not say anything else because it is self-evident. Therefore, it has not to be revealed by some words also. And also, Shabda is we call Pramana. We should understand, Shabda is really not a Pramana. Shabda of the Shastra, like you are Brahman, Tattvamasi, etc., Ayam Atma Brahma, etc. Here in our case, it is Ayam Atma Brahma in Mandukya. So that is, Shabda is not a Pramana. Shabda generates a Pratyaya. Brahmakara Vritti. That is Pramana. So that Vritti is a Pramana, not Shabda. Of course, Vritti is in keeping with the words, teaching. That is there. Therefore, words just do not give. So, words are there. Like in my room, I have so many books, words, and words. All teaching also is there in the form of even so many CDs of Puja Swamiji and these and that. Several things are there. That doesn't make me basically give me freedom, moksha. The Shabda will generate a pratyaya. That will do this avidya nivrutti. That's what he is saying. Avidya nivrutti. And here you don't need a separate thing called then words, that vritti. Well, does avidya nivrutti also, that vidya vritti, jnana vritti does avidya nivrutti and also revealed a atma. No, you need not say avidya nivrutti is enough because it is self-revealing. You need not, so therefore don't say revealed turiya. So vritti reveals turiya. If vritti reveals turiya, then definitely atma is, turiya is not self-revealing. Therefore it is doesn't. Just avidya nivrutti is enough. That's there. And Bhashyakara says with the other things also how the Pramana gives this knowledge. And there we are definitely seeing that, the vritti, in case of other things also, he is going to discuss. This vritti, what it does is, it does a separation of a avarana and a vishaya, the self. So the pramata has avarana, definitely, naturally, that is the upadhi. Pramata has that upadhi, avarana is there. Avarana means this mula vidya basically, but also definitely that is stula vidya is understood. Avarana means mula vidya, we should understand very well. Yeah. And anyway, so that avarana nivrutti happens for the pramata. And so that is enough. It is self-revealing, and so we need not. So just a separation is done by the vritti. And he gives an example, etc. That how when you, in a cutting process, etc., well, you cut the wood and into two pieces, then nothing else is added by that cutting process other than separation of the two things. That's what he says. And here in a Bhashyam, this page number 49, in that second line, Yesham punaha tamo apanayana vatirekena घटातिगमे प्रमाणं व्याप्रियते तेषां छेद्य अवयव संबंध वियोग व्यतिरेकेण अन्यतर अवयवे अपि छिदिः व्याप्रियते इति उक्तं स्यात्. येषां, for some people, some is creating a doubt here. For some people, tama apanayana vyatirekena ghatadigame pramanam vyapriyate. The pramana is engaged, ghatadigame, ghatagnani. Pramana is engaged in knowing the part. Knowing the part means what? Tamo apanayana vyatirekena ghatadigame. So, of course, pramana, the vritti, definitely that, gata vritti, gata cognition basically, gata cognition, gata jnanam, that vritti, jnana vritti, well, tamo apanayana vyatireka, tamo apanayana, that will do this avidya nivritti pertaining to the gata. So, means it will separate the avarana and the gata, right? That's there. The vyatirekena, other than that, other than this doing avidya nivritti, gata adhigame, in knowing the part, pramana vyapriyate. Pramana is also engaged in, definitely, other than avidya nivritti, does something else. Means reveal the part. So, now the gata which was not seen before, let's say, unseen, now becomes seen. So that pramana vritti has definitely, that gata vritti has added that attribute, revealed, seen, etc. So that is what he says. Yesham, for some people. Then, so a new attribute is added, etc. Looks like. If a new attribute is added, then definitely that pramana vyapara, that knowing process, that knowing basically is considered as an action, because it has done something in that object, addition of a new attribute or a change in attribute, let's say. Either way. Earlier it was unseen, because you put an adjective, right? Unseen book. So unseen is an adjective, right? And any adjective means that's in a grammar, adjective, substantive. But really adjective indicates what? Attribute. So like when you say red, rose. Of course, here red is an adjective so far as language is concerned, and rose is a substantive. But really, in terms of an object, redness is an attribute, and that rose is basically a substantive. So, substance. So here, so therefore, now is unseen part becomes seen part. Therefore, this pramana vritti, of course, it has done a avidya nivritti. Avarana has it has done a separation between the avarana and the part. There is a separation, that knowing process, like the cutting process. Well, the two things were together. Cutting process has done separation. This has also done separation. But at the same time, now you say revealed part or seen part. Definitely, so that new attribute has come. So some kind of a change or a new attribute, change of attribute from unseen to seen. Gata with the avarana and gata now without avarana means a revealed part, seen part. So a attribute, new attribute has come. Then it becomes a karma phala. Because karma phala is in terms of apyam, vikaryam, samskaryam, utpadyam, etc. etc. Here if you say either vikaryam, either you say samskaryam. Vikaryam is better. Earlier one attribute. Now with this knowing process, a new attribute has come. Change in attribute has come. Okay. New means that will become samskaryam. Let's say change in attribute. That would be there. Yeah, then knowing is basically become a karma. In fact, we know, so in knowing is not a karma, because the will is suspended. No, like when you want to see where the will is involved, whether you want to see or not, will is involved, definitely. Before operation of a pramana towards the prameya, there is a will. That is definitely. To see the part or not. Well, I have that will. Pramata has the will. So Pramata wants to operate the means of knowledge in order to know the prameya. So there is a will. But once the Pramata operates the means of knowledge towards that prameya, right? Then in that knowing, now in that knowing process, will is suspended. There is no will. If will is there, means you can see this object differently also. You need not see, you can see differently. Means now the object is revealed to you that this is clip, right? But this vritti will take place and Pramata will know it as a, that this is a clip. Instead, now Pramata has a will and knowing. Suppose, what will happen, please? So, well, I would like to eat mango and I am not getting mango here. Just example. Instead of that, clip, well, with my will, I am seeing it as a mango. So I will say, Pramata will say, oh, it is a mango. No. As the object is, so you will see. No will. So in a knowing process, will is suspended. Will is not involved. And therefore, through the knowing process, suppose a change in attribute occurs, right? Change in attribute occurs. Change in attribute occurs means it is a vikaryam, it is a karma phalam. If it is a karma phalam, the knowing process by which it occurred, that knowing process is called karma. And that knowing process is karma, then the will is involved. Then I can definitely will something else. Suppose a bad smell is occurring of some dead animal or something. I have a will to smell differently. No. If it is there, object with a bad smell, you will get a bad smell. If a person in front of you, suppose if you don't like the person and he is there in front of you, yeah, you may close the eyes, you can change the direction of going, everything you can do, but as your eyes fall on the person, you don't have a will. As the person is, your eyes will see and Pramata will have that knowledge. So in a Jnanam, it's a big topic Puja Swamiji discussed. Knowledge versus action. Anyway, and therefore in a knowledge, there is no will involved. And therefore definitely this is a knowing process. We are getting knowledge. In that there is no will involved. Therefore a new attribute is not added or a change in attribute has not occurred. Only pramana vritti that definitely removes avidya. That's it. Avarana, which is there with the pramata, will go away. That's the only thing. So therefore that's what he is saying. And so yesham punaha tamo apanayana vyatirekena ghatadikame pramanam vyapriyate. But for some people, they say some a change in attribute or new attribute has come through this pramana, through the vritti. Other than avidyani vritti, vyatirekena, other than that, tesham, for them, chedya avayava sambandha vyatirekena anyatar avayavapi chidihi vyapriyate iti uktam syat. So if pramana is adding an attribute to the object, that turiyam, it will be like saying knife is, after cutting a banana into two pieces, that cutting process has added, or the knife, the pramana itself, like that. So knife has added some extra attribute in both the pieces of that banana. No. Just cutting. That is the result. That's a culmination. That's what he is going to say now. So, chidi vyapriyate iti uktam syat. Chidi, that chakara is there, that's due to sandhi rule. So you can, chakara you can remove. Chidihi vyapriyate. Chidihi, cutting process. Cutting, that action, cutting process, let's say, is vyapriyate. This cutting process is basically engaged in what? This is a Purvapaksha. So chidihi vyapriyate means that cutting process basically is chedya avayava sambandha viyoga vyatirekena. So chedya avayava, the two avayavas were there. Chedya means which is to be cut. Let's say banana. Banana is chedya. Avayava. Avaya sambandha. So two pieces are together. Avayava sambandha is there. One piece, one banana is there. Chedya avayava sambandha viyoga. So chedya avaya sambandha viyoga means two pieces were together and now a separation is to be done. right? In that banana, that chedya. Well, so chidihi, that cutting process, is engaged in making them separate. That is one. Vyatirekena. Other than that, anyatara avayavepi. In that either of this avayava, well, this cutting process does something else also. Means add something or change something in that. Nothing. Cutting process just cuts two things which are joined together into two. That's it. Nothing else. There is nothing anyatara avayave in either of this cut part. Well, this cutting process or the knife, let's say, that knife adds something. Nothing it adds. No new attribute. Well, we can say now uncut banana, cut banana. So, so that is new avayava. No new avayava is there. Okay, new attribute is there. No. So anyway, so Shankaracharya ji says, well, it is not only in the case of a, now he is going to Atmajnanam, in that of course it is self-revealing and all. But he gives an example of a now pot, etc. And there also he says it's a separation of avarana and pot, nothing else. Don't think that seen pot means a new attribute is added called seen or revealed or something. So he doesn't right now touch this turiya jnanam, etc. He says in other knowledge also, where even we have a knowledge of the world, ignorance of the world in Tula Vidya, etc. Also, in the case of Tula Vidya also, whatever the pramana you use, it only does a separation of the ignorance, avarana, and a given object. Nothing else. Pramana, the vritti. Well, Gata vritti does a separation between the Gata ignorance and Gata. Means avidya nivritti takes place. Avarana goes away. That's it. Nothing more than that. Etc. So that pramana does not do any job, and that's what he says now. Let's read the bhashyam further. Yada punaha gata tamasoho viveka karane pravuttam pramanam anupaditsita tamo nivrutti phala avasanam chidihi iva chedya avayava sambandha viveka karane pravutta tad avayava dvaiti bhava phala avasana tada na antariyakam gata vijnanam na pramana phalam. So he is now a consolidating the whole thing. So you can extend it so far as the, let's leave it that self-knowledge, turiya, jnanam, etc. So far as the worldly knowledge also, like gata vijnanam, etc. In that case also the same thing happens. Chidihi iva. Let's start there. Yada punah gatatamasoho viveka karane pravuttam pramanam anupadisita tamo nivrutti phala avasanam. Leave it there. Chidihi iva. Very nice example, this, separation. Viveka karana will be the separation. So chidihi means it's a strilinga, and I told you chidihi means a cutting process. That cutting action, cutting process. Chidihi chedya avayava sambandha viveka karane pravutta. Because chidihi is a strilinga. So chedya avaya sambandhe viveka karane pravutta chidihi. The cutting process basically chedyavaya. Let's start there. Chedyavaya means what? Two portions of a thing to be cut. But you are talking something gata vijnana. That is later. So chidihi iva, like this means this is an example for gata vijnana. There are also two parts separated, avarana and gata. So here for that he gives example. Chidihi iva, like in a cutting, like a cutting process, is what it is doing. Chedya avayava sambandha viveka karane. So that chedya avayava, chedya, what is to be cut? Let's say wood. So it has avayava, two parts, let's say. Sambandha, sanyoga, they are joined before cutting. Chedya avayava sambandha sanyoga viveka karane. In that case, there is no discrimination. It's a separation. Viveka here is a viveka karane, means basically separation. Before cutting, they are in a sanyoga. By cutting, well, definitely we are going to do what? Sanyoga viyoga. Avayava sambandha viveka karane. Viveka karane means here viyoga. We will do that. So you karane pravutta, you this engaged in separating these two portions. And who is engaged in that pravutta? Who is engaged? Chidihi, the cutting process. The act of cutting basically is engaged in doing this separation of the two parts which were joined of a chedya, of a wood. Tad avayava dvaidi bhava phala avasana. Further, tad avayava dvaidi. Tad avayava means chedya avayava. Chedya avayava dvaidi bhava phala avasana. So this cutting process, well, definitely is engaged in making them separate, and that is itself means that separation is what is the culmination of the result of that process. Culmination of the result. Phala avasana. Phalasya avasanam. Avasanam culmination. Phalasya means phalam is a result of this process of cutting. That result ends into what? Just separation, nothing else. No, after cutting in both the avayavas, that definitely that cutting process has added something in that. Why? Oh, earlier they were joined. So uncut wood, now cut pieces, etc. Cut wood. So that is a new adjective we are using in language. Therefore, some attribute should be there. So that is also, so cutting process is engaged in giving a new attribute to this two pieces. Anyatara. No, nothing like that. So dvaidi bhava means converting to two parts. Dvaidi bhava tad avayava, chedya avayava dvaidi bhava. Well, definitely. So the two portions are separated. One, and dvaidi bhava is converting into two parts. Parting has happened. And that itself is a phalam, that's a result, and that is avasana, phalasya avasanam. So the culmination of the result is nothing but this separation into these two parts. Nothing else is added into that by this cutting process. Tadavayava dvaidi bhava phalameva avasanam. And here it is it's a bahuri samasa, because tadavaya dvaidi bhava phala avasana chidihi. So for chidi, the cutting process, it's a strilinga word. Therefore, phala avasana, strilinga. Therefore, definitely it's an adjective to the chidihi. The entire thing, it's a samasa. If it is adjective to the chidihi, it's a bahuri. So the whole various words are combined together, anyapada pradhana. So definitely all are combined together. Dvaiti bhavam eva phalam. And phalam, so chedyavaya dvaiti bhava phalam eva avasanam yasyaha sa chidihi tadavaya dvaiti bhava phalavasana chidihi. Anyway, this is by the way, not too much of grammar, okay? So otherwise you will run away. So this is for our Umlaji. Anyway, so this is Tadavayava, Chedya Avayava, etc. Only in a Bhashyam, what you should do is, wherever this Sarvanama comes, replace with a proper noun which must be there in the previous part. That's it. That is to be done. So already Chedya has already come. Chedya Avayava Sambandha Viveka Karane Pravutta Tadavayava means Chedya Avayava, etc. And Iva, Chidihi Iva, well, like this here also, where Yada Punaha Gatatamosoho Vivekakarane Pravuttam Pramanam Anupaditsita Tamo Nivrutti Phalavasanam. Now Dashtanta. Earlier Drashtanta. Iva is definitely for that. Like this cutting process does this. Same way here. Gata tamasoho viveka karane. So the object, the pot is there, and you are approaching the pot, and definitely your eyes fall on that along with the mind, and there will be a gatavrutti. A gatavrutti, as the gatavrutti occurs, the pramata which has a avarana of the pot Means pot ignorance was there. See, as the pot vritti occurs, pot cognition occurs, that avarana which was there with the pramata goes away. That's it. And for that pramata, pot shines. That's it. So that is what he wants to say. Gata tamasoho viveka karane pravrittam pramana. So pramana, exactly like their cutting process was a pramana. And here the pramana is also doing what? Separation. Like the cutting process does a separation of into two pieces, pramana also does same. Pramana is that vritti, you know now very well. So pramana is also doing the same thing, cutting into two pieces. What? Gata tamasoho. So gata tamasoho vivek karane pravrittam pramanam. Pramana is engaged, the vritti is engaged in separating. Separating what? Gata tamasoho viveka karane pravrittam. Gatascha tamascha. Gata tamasi. That's a samasa. And then tayoho, gata tamasoho, etc. So gata tamasoho viveka karane, the pramata is engaged in separating what? This gata and avarana, which is there with the pramata. Gata is a prameya. Then gata becomes a prameya only when definitely that avarana goes away. That's it. And that separating is what? Bhashyakara uses a word, see, pravrittam pramanam, then Bhashyakara says anupaditsita tamo nivrutti phala avasanam pramanam. Pramana is, you have to take it that way. So this kind of a, this anupaditsita tamo nivrutti phala avasanam. So again, so tamo nivrutti phala avasan, culmination of this pramana operation is basically is nothing but a separation of avarana and what? That's it. That basically the culmination of the result of this operating this means of knowledge, operating this vritti, is separation of the pot and avarana. But what kind of a tamaha? What kind of a ignorance it is? Avarana. Anupaditsita. See, first is upaditsita. Upaditsita means upadatum ishtam upaditsitam. Upadatum ishtam upaditsitam. Upadatum means upa plus a plus da dhatu. You must have heard that da means to give. Adanam means take. So upa with along with upa also same meaning. Upadatum means grahitum. Grahitum ishtam. What he wants to acquire. Right? Wanted is called upaditsitam. Anupaditsitam. Unwanted. Hey, what is unwanted? Tamaha. Anupaditsitam tamo. Nivrutti. You definitely attend a class for what? To generate a vritti. That's it. Why do you want to generate a vritti? Because there is a tamaha, avarana. Avarana on what? Self. That's the upadhi, main upadhi, karan upadhi. That is the avarana. Oh, you are Brahman. Oh, really? I do not know. Yes, proven. So, yeah. So my point is the avarana is there. And definitely you want to remove that avarana, which is definitely unwanted, because it has created all mistakes. I am waker, I am this, I am a limited entity, subject to birth, death and all. So it's definitely anishtam. So anupaditsitam is equal to anishtam, unwanted. Upaditsitam ishtam. So for that you have to generate, you have to use a means of knowledge, etc., shabda, etc., which should generate a corresponding vritti in your mind, aham brahmasmi, etc. That will remove. But here in case of a pot also, it's the same thing. Pot avarana is there, and therefore you operate a means of knowledge called eyes, along with the mind which falls on the pot, and definitely there will be a pot vritti that will remove the ignorance of the pot. Anyway. And this anupaditsatam is a desiderative past passive participle. Actually, it is upaditsatam. First, you have to make it desiderative past passive participle upaditsatam, upadatum ishtam, and then nai tat purusha. Na upaditsatam, anupaditsatam, etc. Anyway, so ignorance is gone. Pramana's job is done. Phalavasana. That's it. Nothing else. Pot is revealed. Not that Pramana has done the vritti, after doing avidya nivritti, has added new attribute on the pot. And now that's how you say, now the pot is revealed. Oh, there is a pot. There is a pot. I am seeing a raw pot. Pot is seen. So that new attribute is added. No. But of course, Pramana removes ignorance. And when ignorance is gone, what is known, Swamiji? Actually, is it so? Well, in the case of Atma, well, it is self-revealing, so we can say that actually. In the case of a pot is a jadam vastu, and therefore it is not self-revealing. So, not only ignorance has to go, because pot is revealed means a conscious being is involved now. And therefore, if vritti which belongs to the antakarana, which is jadam, and pot is jadam, so basically that vritti, ghatakar vritti, which is jadam, can definitely remove the avarana on the pot. That's there. So now it is a pot vritti. Therefore, the avarana on the pot has gone. But pot shines, becomes knowledge. Definitely consciousness is there, right? So pot vritti plus consciousness becomes pot jnana. Therefore, revealed pot or seen pot has that aspect. The vritti, ghatakar vritti, has no capacity to reveal the pot, really speaking. Consciousness is involved. Reflected consciousness, chidabhasa, etc. But ultimately consciousness. That should be there. Since the pot is not self-revealing, pot vritti, mere pot vritti, which is jada, cannot reveal pot. And therefore something else is required. But Bhashyakara doesn't give. Very, very brilliant. Very brilliant way of saying that the pramana vritti, he doesn't want to give extra credit to vritti. Really. Anyway, so the pot has to be revealed, but Acharya doesn't mention it. Pramana reveals the pot. He says Pramana removes only ignorance. That's what we are discussing. He does not say Pramana reveals the pot. So he just says pot gets revealed. As the pot vritti takes place, pot gets revealed. But really speaking, for revealing, consciousness is needed. Consciousness, which is self-revealing, reveals itself. Self-revealing means reveals itself and reveals the world. Either through ahankara, either as a sakshi. That's how we have two things, sakshi pratyaksha, indriya pratyaksha, all that. Anyway, I'm not going into that, but my point is revealing knowledge, seen, etc. Consciousness is involved. Therefore, we should not say, well, vritti does only removal of the ignorance pertaining to that. Avarana goes and pot gets revealed. No. Consciousness is involved. But he is right. Vritti does a job of removing avarana. That is for sure. That's for sure. Other things is not mentioning. And we'll be seeing that. So, normally whenever, we describe a knowledge, we talk about both. In Panchadashi we have done that. That's how we said, describing in a pot knowledge, let's say, take the same example, pot knowledge, what happens is what? First is a pot vritti. So basically, antakarana through the eyes goes out. part of the antakarana, not full antakarana. The ahankara goes out. If ahankara goes out, means gone, over. There is no aham at all. So it's exactly like a torch. You keep a torch in your hand, only a beam goes out and lights up the object, right? Entire torch doesn't go there. Same way, in antakarana, two parts are there, ahamvritti, idamvritti. Ahamvritti remains here. There is an identification, it's a waker. Yeah, please understand. So ahamvritti is very much there, it will remain inside. Antakarana vachina chaitanyam is there. But in that antakarana, which is now conscious, or along with the chidabhasa, will have a vritti, idamvritti. And that means a part of antakarana through the eyes, chakshusha vritti goes, pervades the pot. So the avarana on the pot goes away. That's called vritti vyapti. And the chidabhasa which is there, in that vritti, right, the vritti which along with the mind naturally has the chidabhasa also. The chidabhasa in that vritti, once the avarana goes away through the vritti, the chidabhasa in the vritti lights up the pot. That's how we have learnt phalavapti. So ultimately you have to bring that chidabhasa, right? Chaitanya in one way. So without that, there nothing is revealed. Otherwise, a jadavastu can reveal this also. That we have seen. It cannot be revealed. This cannot reveal this. This cannot reveal this. All these things are revealed by the conscious being. Anyway, so then why does not Shankaracharya talks about phalavapti? Bhashyakara should say, yeah, pramana removes that vritti, removes avidya, avarana goes away pertaining to object, ghata, etc. And then, well, the chidabhasa will reveal the pot. Therefore, you will have a pot knowledge. So, pramana revealing the pot, he doesn't say that. He only says pramana removes ignorance, and that's a fact. That is the fact. Pramana, that vritti, removes the avarana, ignorance. That's it. In the case of Atma, well, it is simple. Vritti vyapti alone is required, and therefore it should not be mentioned. In the case of pot knowledge, etc., vritti, well, definitely removes only avidya. Avarana goes away. Then Bhashyakara simply says, well, the pot is revealed. So Bhashyakara should say, well, the chidabhasa and all that, but he doesn't talk about here phalavapti. So pramana reveals the pot through phalavapti, of course, through the chidabhasa. But Shankaracharya doesn't want to give that credit to pramana. Very beautifully discussed by Swamiji. So that chidabhasa is not intrinsically belonging to pramana. Antakarana is a jadavastu. And therefore, antakarana intrinsically, naturally doesn't have a consciousness. And here, if Bhashyakara talks about the pramana, which is the vritti, antakarana means it is jadam. And that's job is to remove the avarana. That's for sure. By making a ghatakara vritti. Yeah, avarana, samajh, how does the avarana, means avarana is there on the pot and vritti goes away and remove the avarana? No. The vritti takes the shape. Its mind is very subtle. Takes a shape of a pot. As that it takes the shape of a pot, the avarana on the pot has gone. But, well, definitely the pot knowledge involves that second factor, that chidabhasa, consciousness. Reflected here is consciousness, which reveals the pot. Any knowledge, piece of knowledge, definitely involves both the vritti plus reflected consciousness or consciousness. So, and that since that reflected consciousness or consciousness does not belong to the vritti naturally, intrinsically, and therefore Bhashyakara doesn't mention at all. Bhashyakara does not give an unnecessary credit to this pramana, vritti. And so that credit goes to whom? If chidabhasa, that's what it is. Now please see. Swamiji has explained that. I want to add few more things in that, to be honest with you. See, the Chidabhasa does not belong to the vritti. Means consciousness is not intrinsically there in Antakarana. Means in the vritti, let us say Ramu. So vritti removes that avarana, that is fine, by taking a shape of that object. So avarana is gone. And the Chidabhasa, which really does not belong to that, has come from what? That's the question. Oh, Chidabhasa has come from the consciousness. Here it should not be like that. I will tell you, there will be issue here. So consciousness basically, along with the mind. So Antakarana avachinna chaitanyam is pramata. We have already said that. Consciousness along with this mithya antakarana. Means consciousness pervades the mind, let's say. Antakarana avachinna chaitanyam, antakarana pratibimbita chaitanyam, like anything, whatever you want to say. Antakarana abhasita chaitanyam, chidabhasa. Or pratibimba, chit pratibimba, etc. So pratibimba vada or avacheda vada will be avachinna chaitanya. Generally, Vichara Sagara makes this difference. Antakarana vishishta chaitanyam is a pramata. Antakarana avachinna chaitanyam is conscious sakshi. But let's not discuss this right now. Means there is identification. Vichara Sagar, Nishal Dasji wants to make it confirm. So there is identification. That is pramata. Yeah. Antakarana avachinna means enclosed. So consciousness which is enclosed, there the example is a pot space. Really speaking, space, there is nothing called pot space and the space which is outer space, etc. Right? We know very well. It appears as a pot space. So therefore, for that, generally Antakarana avachinna chaitanyam is not taken as a pramata. Generally. In some case, even Puja Swamiji also uses, but with a clear understanding. But Antakarana definitely Pratibimbita Chaitanyam, Vishishta Chaitanyam, Abhasita Chaitanyam is definitely has identification naturally, because you take it as a Chidabhasa. Avachinna Chaitanyam is taken as, they give example of a pot space and outer space. There was space being one alone. Pot cannot create and so all that. But anyway, so that is pramata. So pramata is already, pramata means say a conscious mind, means a mind which is inert along with the Chidabhasa. So that is pramata's Chidabhasa basically pervades that vritti. Vritti is jadam. And that is the reason why if pramata is not there behind a vritti, there is no knowledge. Pramata should be there. Yeah, some knowledge is taking place, but pramata is not aware. Knowledge cannot take place. So eyes are there, and then definitely vritti. See, first thing, Antakarana Vishishta Chaitanyam means pramata. Then definitely every vritti, idam vritti now, that is ahankara, aham vritti. That's fine. So as the mind becomes, we have discussed this in Drigdashya Viveka. As the mind is pervaded by the consciousness, there is a Chidabhasa, and then definitely the aham vritti occurs. That's called ahankara. And that aham vritti, what is the object for the aham vritti? Well, entire mind. So he pervades entire mind, consciousness pervades entire mind and claims that whole mind as I. And therefore whatever happens in the mind he claims as happening, as I. So all decision and all that, kartrutvam, bhoktrutvam, pramatrutvam, belongs to I. Anyway, so that is pramata's Chidabhasa pervades that idam vritti also. And therefore, Chidabhasa which does not belong to the vritti because it is jadam, Chidabhasa of the pramata pervades that. Therefore, credit of the pot knowledge, ultimately should go to pramata. Ultimately. But pramata has a avarana. That avarana is removed by that vritti. So role of a vritti is to remove that avarana for that pramata. Then pramata's chidabhasa pervades that vritti and we will have a gata prama. So this is how we have to understand. Therefore, Bhashyakara's contention is to say that pramana does just avidya nivrutti, avarana nivrutti. That is true. That is true. Anyway, but he doesn't mention about that pramatas, chidabhasa, etc. He wants to convey that the credit should go to pramata or finally to Atma alone, basically. That's how in a Dakshinamurti Stotram also said, Nana Chidra Gatodara Sthitamaha Deepa Prabha Bhaswaram Jnanam Yasya tu Chakshuradi Karane Dvara Bahihi Spandate, etc. etc. I am not going into that. So Chidabhasa, which belongs to this Pramata, is there, and that illumines the pot or reveals the pot. So that's how we say, in any direction when you see, the knowledge takes place. If you don't see, over. No. So if we see that Chakshusha Vritti will be there, correct. Chakshusha Vritti will be there. That Chakshusha Vritti has removed the avarana on that object. That's happened. But the revelation of that object in the mind involves Chidabhasa, which belongs to Pramata. Because without Antakarana Vishishta Chaitanya, means Antakarana along with the Chidabhasa, there cannot be Pramata. Therefore, entire Antakarana is with Chidabhasa, naturally. Therefore, any vritti will have a Chidabhasa which belongs to what? Pramata. Clear? Please. So, this is all epistemology, but we should know. And it's a far-reaching consequences to understand 7th mantra. Far-reaching. We will discuss that later. Means nothing else is required ultimately. Nothing else is required, that will come. So tada, well, means when the pramana removes this avarana called ignorance, tada, means definitely then the part which is already there within that range of the Chidabhasa of the Pramata will be revealed. Anyway. Here one more thing I would like to discuss is, which is discussed in a Naishkarmya Siddhi and very beautifully discussed in a Ahankara Atma Viveka. Very subtle Viveka. That's a final Viveka, final stroke. Right? Brahmastra. Otherwise you will continuously say, I am Vishwa, I am Vekar, and I am this, and I am individual, I am Jiva, and subject to birth, death, and subject to all karmas, and this and that. That's there. So, Brahmastra means what? Aham Brahmasmi, that's a Brahmastra. So, for that you have to do Ahankara Atma Viveka, Ahankara Sakshi Viveka, Ahankara Brahma Viveka, whatever you say. Anyway, and Sureshwaracharya ji says that, both of them are drashta. Ahankara is also drashta. Atma is also drashta. Druk. Both of them are druk, because druk shabda he is using. But he says, Atma, the Sakshi, Brahman alone, is akrama druk. And Ahankara is a krama druk. Means what? Atma basically is akrama. Krama means what? Sequence. Akrama, non-sequence. Druk. Atma basically is a druk, is a seer, which he doesn't see or reveal objects sequentially. No. Atma does not reveal the objects sequentially. Oh, Atma now reveals pot. Then Atma reveals cloth. Atma reveals bottle. No. Atma being all pervading, pervades everything, reveals everything. And therefore, of the past, of the future, of the present, simultaneously. No, Swamiji, Atma does not reveal. You are saying there were things in the past. Revealed where? Atma. Present, Atma. Whatever is there right now, revealed Atma. Oh, future objects are not revealed. That's how they revealed. They are revealed by in Atma. Future is not yet revealed. So basically, Atma reveals everything simultaneously. And you say the Atma, Swamiji, but suppose Sakshi has revealed the incidents of the past. So Sakshi was there, Swamiji, we are saying. Sakshi is revealing right now the present object. Therefore, Sakshi is revealing present. Sakshi will reveal the future. Therefore, Swamiji, Sakshi also has this past, present, and future. No, sir. It's not. The objects, the incident, basically the situations, incidents in your life of the past, present, future, those incidents were time bound, naturally. Those incidents have a time bound nature that you superimpose upon the Sakshi. How can you say, Swamiji, that it is superimposed upon Sakshi? Because the Sakshi is a changeless consciousness, and therefore, if it is a changeless consciousness, then definitely we cannot say the Sakshi is a time bound. Sakshi, which was there in the present, now might have undergone a change in present, will undergo a change in future. No. Therefore, Sakshi being a changeless revealer, it cannot be a time bound entity. Only thing when still we use Sakshi was there in those incidents of the past, that was etc. really does not belong to the Sakshi, belongs to that incident which is time bound, and that is superimposed upon the Sakshi. Therefore, Sakshi basically is a timeless consciousness. The whole time is revealed in consciousness. Therefore, Sakshi is akramadrik, not sequentially. Ahankara is also revealer, but Ahankara, the Pramata, is basically kramadrik, sequentially, because it has a vritti apeksha. Why it has a vritti apeksha? Because it has the avarana. Since it has avarana, it cannot reveal everything together. That's how Pramata is alpagnya. Because basically, so Pramata reveals the things sequentially. Very beautiful discussion there. Ahankara Atma Viveka. Ahankara is a time-bound entity, space-time-bound entity, naturally. It is a vritti, aham vritti, or that you know very well. As you go to deep sleep state, Ahankara resolves, right? As you wake up, Ahankara is again is there. So it's a space-time bound entity. And therefore Ahankara is a time-bound entity, reveals the things sequentially. Atma reveals everything. Both are drishta, both are revealer, both are drik. One is akramadrik, timeless drik, non-changing drik, and one is changing drik, naturally. Ahankara keeps changing depending upon the vritti. If it is chakshusha vritti, Ahankara says, I am a seer, because Ahankara means it is identified with the entire mind. And then, of course, senses and of course body also. But therefore, as the vritti occurs, Ahankara will keep saying. If a sukhakara vritti occurs, Ahankara will say, I am happy. Dukhakara vritti, thought of unhappiness, Ahankara will say, I am dukhi. I am karta, I am bhokta, I am eater, I am runner. So Ahankara is changing, it's a time-bound entity. Atma, the Sakshi. And how can we recognize Sakshi? You need not. You are self-evident consciousness. That consciousness which in presence of that consciousness, thoughts, entire mind is illumined. Therefore, you are called Sakshi. Not that you have a will to illumine the mind. Mind being non-separate from you, too close to you, automatically revealed, illumined in your presence, which is self-illumining. And therefore, with respect to the mind which is illumined, you basically are consciousness, not even a Sakshi. You are just consciousness, pure consciousness is called Sakshi. Beautifully explained Ahankara Atma Viveka in the second chapter. If you want to study, you can study also. It's an extremely good portion. I have not seen Ahankara Atma Viveka so thorough in any other book. We are basically teaching in that Gujarati class, and therefore we come across all this. Anyway, I will stop here, and further we will see after that. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.